One thing I wanted to start about today, I was thinking about this. The title of what I'm supposed to speak about is Love Changes Everything. And before we get to the word love, I want to talk about the word change. Have you heard enough of that in the past 3-6 months? Change now. This is the change we can live with. That's the change we can. Change, change, change. And there's a good question. Are you ready for change? Do you want to change? What kind of change should we be dealing with? So before we talk about change and what love might do, I want you to consider one thing, and that doesn't change. And I'd like you to just turn to others, shake each other's hand and say, Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Take a moment to do that. With that thought in mind, I want to talk a little bit about the issue of change, and I want to talk about the greatest change maker. You know, they keep asking, is this a change break? Is this going to tip it over? Jesus is not only the greatest leadership role model of all times, he's the greatest change maker of all times. And what he's doing today, he was doing 2,000 years ago, and his strategy is the same. His strategy is his people. His strategy is his church. Now, I'm not a great Bible scholar, but I have read this thing in 2 Chronicles where the Lord said, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and forgive and discontinue their wicked ways, I will hear their prayers and I will heal the land. What I'm hearing in all of that is there's something very important about what God's people are doing in the land and what its impact will have on elsewhere. So that kind of came around to the issue of change and where should it begin. We were asked a couple of years ago to look at writing a Lead Like Jesus book for churches, given the fact that all the message of being a servant leader and so forth that Jesus talked directly to was to his followers. So it seemed possible and seemed probable that we ought to look at what does this message mean for leadership in the church. And that was a kind of an interesting activity, and we started to look at it and say, now, what are we going to be able to do to write about something relevant about churches where man has been doing something to church for the last 2,000 years. So we came upon the idea going back and looking at what Jesus said about church. Just what he said, what's in the red writing about church. And the first time Jesus mentions the word church is right after Peter's confession. When Jesus asked, kind of doing a polling, he said, what do the people say I am? What are people saying about me? Who do they say I am? And they got the idea. Some are saying you're a prophet. Some say you're John the Baptist came back, Elijah, variety of things that other people said. And then he asked a very, very important question to his disciples. He said, who do you say I am? That's one of 3 questions Jesus asked his disciples over the term he was with them. One was, who do you say I am? And it's important for us to be able to be very clear on the answer to that question. Because as we describe Jesus, we'll describe our relationship with him. If we call him Lord and Savior, that sets up an understanding of our relationship. He calls us into even a more intimate relationship of teacher and friend. And as I call him, so will color my relationship. But he asked them, and Peter comes up with the answer. He said, who do you say I am? He said, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And we got to understand that's who we say he is. He is a prophet, he is a teacher, but as Peter said, he is the Christ, the Son of the living God. And then he said, Peter, you got it right. He said, you didn't think that up. That came from a divine providence. But he also said something less. On this rock, I will build my church. Now, I kept focusing on the idea of I will build my church. And see, what does that all mean? Well, first of all, what is Jesus' church going to look like? First of all, it's his personal possession. He said, I will build my church. Second of all, he's the builder and the owner. I went back yesterday and I got looking at some other biblical building projects, like the ark, the tabernacle, the temple. And those were all things that God gave to others to build for him. But this was the one construction that Jesus said, I will build my church. I am the builder. So that was kind of interesting. But then I asked a real kind of basic question. What's he building? What's a church? And did a little bit of a word study on the word church, and it was ekklesia. And then what that meant, as you take the different languages, the best definition was community. Community. It's not a building. It's not a place. It's a community. So he put those together. He said, I will build my community, and the gates of hell will not overcome it. It's not only his personal possession, it's a community, it's a living organism rather than a building or a place, and that it will be built to last. We talk about Jim Collins' book, Built to Last. Well, Jesus is talking about my community will stay in for all times against any and everything.